So I just stumbled upon this video from this Ustad Riyad guy, and I wasn't going to actually react to this, and I posted a comment on his video. If it's still there, I don't know. But I really I thought I had to do a video on this because, frankly, I've had it with these people. And what I mean by that is the dishonesty and the deceit they clearly put on display for everyone to see. And that's what I wrote in the comment. The thing is, this guy, I suppose he's a member of the Salafi sect or something in Islam. And he comes and tells us how he studied in Mauritania and he has the ijaza from all these teachers, and of course he did all the religious studies and the hadith science and everything. And this frankly is the fallacy of appealing to authority, of course, but nevertheless, then he goes on in this video to present his arguments against so-called Quran alone believers, or whatever they call people who actually believe in the Quran and don't take religious authority from other man-made books. And then he goes on to list, I mean, you can watch his video, he goes on to list all these intricate things about how hadith chains are studied and how everything is preserved, and how this guy told that guy, and then this guy told these 10 other guys, and typical stuff like that. But he does that in order to appeal authoritative, to appeal like he knows what he's saying, and everyone else, of course, is, I mean, from what he says, from the people who don't take religious authority from the hadith, that they are stupid, and of course they know nothing, and they just speak out of their whims, and they do self-interpretation of the Quran or anything really. So that he goes on with these with his whiteboard, with his lists and everything, and that's frankly I'm not interested in that. I know, I watched the video what he says, but what I wanted to react to was when he started quoting the verses of God from the Quran. And exactly as I expected it, because that's what they do, he twisted the words of God. Clearly, directly. In the video you can see, if you look up here, I will just show a freeze frame. He's quoting several verses where it says that we have a good example in the Messenger of God, and more such things. But my main point was when he just as he said that, just as he quoted that, or he mentioned that verse, and he shows it on the screen, and you can see it. Just look how it says, how God tells us to obey the messenger. But just merely seconds after he says that, or he presents the verse, multiple times he twists that and says, oh, look, it says obey the prophet.
Why would Allah say whoever obeys the prophet?
And yeah, why? Indeed, because he doesn't. God doesn't say obey the prophet. There's not a single verse in the whole of Quran where God says obey the prophet. Not one. It's always some form of obey the messenger, or if you obey the messenger, and so on. And God knows what he says. God is extremely precise in his words. If he wanted to say obey the prophet, he would have said that. But he didn't. He said obey the messenger. And there's a point to it. But he, of course, because he's pursuing his agenda, which has a pre-baggage of the whole hadith literature attached to it. Now, he's of course biased, and he will want to twist the words of God so as if to play apologetics for the hadith. Because he has to. They all have to. And that's exactly what he does. He keeps on going, obey the Prophet, we should obey the Prophet. And what did the Prophet say? Well, we don't know, because that's not in the Quran. What the Prophet did or didn't do or said, or anything really about his life is found in the Hadith books. So you see, we should obey the Prophet, and the only way to obey the Prophet is from the Hadith books, because we need them to know what did he say. But it doesn't say that. The Quran never says obey the Prophet. It says obey the messenger. And the messenger brought a message. And what's the message? The Quran. But that's not my main point. There are many people, many other YouTubers, really, who have countless times mentioned this exact argument that they bring. My thing is that he's clearly, absolutely twisting the words of God. And he knows that. Exactly as God said in the Quran. It's so interesting that God spoke about these people. And in the last verse he is showing on the screen, and you will see it in the video, I can actually play it, so I can play the part, and you can see simultaneously what he is presenting on his screen.
Whatever the messenger gives you, take it. And whether he forbids you from, then leave it.
Now, see, he presents the verse on the screen, and look how conveniently he's hidden the top part of the verse with this blue marker thing. Why is he hiding that? Why is he not showing the beginning of the verse? Because they have the agenda. He needs to enforce his view that the Quran says we have to take whatever the messenger gives us. So, well, what does he give us? The hadith, of course. And in order to enforce that, he's hiding the top part of the verse, which anyone can check. You can go to that verse and you can see the verse talks about the war bounty. So there was a war bounty, there was a war, there was a bounty. God tells us that a part of the war bounty is for God, the messenger, the orphans, and so on, so as to not circulate among the rich. And then he continues and says, and whatever the messenger gives you, take it. And whatever he forbids you from, refrain from it. So don't take it. So basically, really directly, it talks about the war bounty, and then the spoils of war were given to certain people there. So if the messenger gave you something or gave you the permission to have that part of the war bounty, you can take it. It has nothing to do with hadith. It has nothing to do with whatever came later and people wrote. It's exactly that, the war bounty. But the way he twists this guy, twists the word of God, it's exactly as the verse of God in the Quran says, that among them is a group who twist their tongues so as to say that something is from the book, but it is not from the book. And they say it is from Allah, but it is not from Allah. And they say a lie about Allah while they know it. This guy knows exactly that he is lying. No one can say he doesn't know. He himself said that he finished so many studies and religious studies, and he has ijazas, and he's teachers and trainers and scholars. So he knows, of course, he knows Arabic, he can read the verse, he knows exactly what he's saying, yet he's directly twisting God's words. He twists, he changes the word messenger on purpose to prophet, to suit his agenda. And then he hides, as you saw, the top part of a verse in order for us to, or well, I know it, but many people don't. And then they just see the bottom part where it says, whatever the messenger gives you, take it. And then he goes on and says, yeah, see, that's about the hadith. The dishonesty on display is appalling. It's why I had to make the video. Because I didn't really want to. I post sometimes a comment on his video, or I post it on Twitter about these things. But it's just no one reads it on Twitter maybe, or the comments get shadow banned or not even displayed, or he could hide the comment on his video, of course. And many do, by the way. I made many such comments, and while I can see them, that's how YouTube works, no one else sees them actually. So I checked a few times and saw that actually my comments weren't being displayed at all. And that's why I thought I need and I want to make this video, because this is not the first one. There are so many of these Dawa bros, you know, like this guy who do Dawa online and on social media, and they all have the same playbook, the same agenda. They all use absolutely the same arguments, these same verses, like the one you saw it maybe in the video. I mean, you can see it on above this hidden blue marked verse, where it says that we have a good example in the messenger of God. So Muhammad, peace be upon him, is a good example for us. And they say, see, he's the best example. He's the best of creation. But it doesn't say that. They should stop twisting the words of God. It doesn't say the best of anything. It says he is a good example. The exact words are used for Abraham. Exactly the same words, that we have a good example in Ibrahim. But their agenda and their playbook, again, of course, when they want to enforce this view, that's how they do it. And it's the same exact arguments. If you watch him or whoever of these Dawa bro guys, you know, many people maybe don't know, but most of these guys, many of them at least, appear in the Speaker's Corner in the UK, and then they post these videos where they speak to Christians and other people of other religions or atheists and so on, and they all have this same strand, this sectarian strand. They're all sects. These are Sunni Salafi sects, but the other guys also, they are all sectarians, and they all go with the same agenda because they presuppose that they need to take religious rulings from Hadith. And once you accept that and you say, okay, we must take religious rulings from Hadith, then he goes to the Quran, sees a verse, and the verse doesn't really align with what the Hadith is saying. So instead of saying, okay, then this Hadith is problematic, I cannot accept that. They can't do that. They are brainwashed. So he said, no. It must be as the Hadith says. And then they twist the actual word of God, the Quran itself, just as you saw. Just so as to force, they want to force God and his words to align with man-made books, with hadiths, with hearsay, basically. And then something like this happens. And then you can see this guy has over 100,000 subscribers, and everybody in the comments is like, oh, mashallah, ahi, mashallah, mashallah. Yeah, may God reward you, mashallah. May God reward you for what? For deceit? For twisting his words? Do you really think God will reward him for that? I mean, here's God's warning, clear, in the Quran, about these exact people. They cannot say that about me, or say, oh, no, the verse is talking about you because you are twisting your tongue, your words. You are reading something from the book. You are saying this is from the book, but it really isn't from the book. No, we are reading the book exactly as what it says. It's these guys that read the book, and you can see it on the screen. You can see the word messenger. I mean, if you read Arabic, you can see it says Rasul. So it's messenger. It's not Nabi. It's not prophet. And then he continues and goes on and directly, with a straight face, says, prophet, prophet, obey the prophet. We must obey the prophet. Why does Allah tell us to obey the prophet? He doesn't. So I just had to react to this because I don't know. I just cannot stand this anymore, to be honest. I have written articles, I have written posts, I have written for decades now about these exact issues and how they do this and how they twist this. The unfortunate thing is that people who are not Muslim go on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, oh my God, TikTok, the cesspool, and then basically 90% of content, Islamic content that you will see there is from this specific sect. It's from these guys. They are all on the same strand. They are all on the same madhab, the Salafi strand. Because they are extremely active, they are financed, they are, some of them, paid by different regimes. And that's why they are so overwhelmingly present on the internet. While the other guys, there could be other sectarian people, there could be other Sunnis, but who are not Salafi, they simply are not that active. So they don't really have much content online. And then non-Muslims, when they search anything about Islam, they stumble upon this guy, like this exactly this guy. And then they will all, of course, because they don't know better, they don't really check. It says, obey the messenger, and he says, you see, it says to obey the prophet. Yeah, the prophet was the messenger, so it's the prophet. No, it's not. It's extremely important how God uses his words. Do not twist God's words about anything. As I said, God is extremely precise with his words. He chose every single word in the Quran. He could have chosen this one, but no, he chose this one. There's a reason to that. As I said, there are many videos about this. But that's just one thing. There are countless such verses and statements and hadiths, and that they will jumble all together in order to further push this specific agenda. And then the non-Muslims all land on this path. They go. I mean, there are many cases, there are many examples where even such non-Muslims, then they come in contact with someone like this guy, and when they do their dawah, their religious propagation in the speaker's corner, for example, and then a Christian comes along or an atheist, they are so good at bringing arguments from the Quran and logic and reason and philosophy. They are extremely good at that, so as to catch them. So they catch them. But once they catch them, then the thing starts. Oh, but you need also the hadith, and you need the scholars, and you need Ibn Taymiyyah, and oh my God, you need Al-Albani, and you need this guy, and this, and this, and this one said so, and you have to do this, and then it becomes so overwhelming, so basically super hard to stick to the religion, that there are many cases when then these non-Muslims who then accept it, the religion, leave the religion again. Naturally. Because, as God says in the Quran, he has made the religion easy for us, not hard. These guys make it super hard. So they instill fear in people, like this guy here, by bragging, by showing off that he has studied so much about hadith sciences, by the way, which are sciences. And as I said, he has the ijaza. It's like a letter of recommendation, or like a diploma from a teacher, that he has studied this field and this field of the religion and this and all these things. And then if someone who just reverted to Islam sees such a problem, just like this, he sees there, it says, for example, it talks about war bounty, and then it says and then they come to them and say, hey, but it talks here about war bounty, so what's up with that? Then this guy jumps in and says, oh, no, it's actually comprehensive, it's actually general, but in order to know that, you have to study hadith science and compare so many things, and this scholar said that, and this tafsir said this, and you have to know all of that. So they overwhelm them with that, and many people then say, just accept it. And as I said, fallacy of appealing to authority. They think, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about because he has studied so many things, so he must be telling the truth. Well, how about no? How about he's deceiving and lying through his teeth, as you can see for yourself? You cannot simply don't accept my words. I'm not a scholar and I don't have ijazas, but don't even accept my words for it. Check for yourself. I mean, you have eyes. You can see. You can see what he's doing. Hiding bits and pieces of verses in order to create a specific narrative. That's dishonest. And God confirmed that they will do that with that verse that I showed. But anyway, I will check. Maybe I will stumble upon some other videos and I might react to them as well. I was never planning to actually really do this on my channel. As you know, my channel has every type of content. But lately, because these guys are so super hyperactive online, and many people that I see who are interested about God, about Islam, about the Quran, who are genuinely interested, search for knowledge and then stumble upon these guys. And then they take authority from men, from people who wrote things. And then there's another verse in the Quran where it says, it describes people who have taken their priests and rabbis, or rabbis. I don't like to say rabbis, it's wrong. Rabbi. As their lords. And that's exactly what's happening here. Because once you are in that net, if you just object to something and you say, well, I don't care what Ibn Taymiyyah said, you are practically regarded as a kafir, as a disbeliever. I mean, if you reject some of these higher up scholars, you are directly rejected, frowned upon. You might be even, because they bicker so much about, but Ibn Taymiyyah said this, but no, Ghazali said that, but this guy said this, no, this other guy said that, and that's why we have these problems generally in the world, like between sects as well, between Sunnis and Shias, because Shias have their hadith, Sunnis have their hadith, and this hadith says the opposite of that hadith from the other sect, and then they are in animosity, just as God said in the Quran. They will be in animosity until the day of judgment, because they have abandoned the Quran. They have abandoned. That's what the messenger will say on the day of judgment. That's a verse in the Quran. He will complain and he will say to God, my people, my community has abandoned the Quran. And that's exactly how this happens, like this. Say, mashallah, akhi, to this guy and guys like him. Anyway, bye.